Today my guest is Raffael Rialdi. Raffael, how are you?
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you here in America. We've spoken so many times in Europe.
Yeah, we met in Romania last time.
Beautiful country.
That's wonderful.
And now you're here at the MVP Summit.
Yeah, it's my 15th year.
15 years,
Yeah.
that's very impressive.
Impressive, yeah.
You must be
Of
doing
course.
something amazing to keep getting invited
Yeah.
back. What kind of an MVP are you?
I am a developer security guy.
Okay.
So, but now we are part of this big Visual Studio family. So
Right.
I have big friends with the C++ group and the C# group and so on. So
I know
we
the C#
have
group. Those are
Great
good
discussions. Everything is under NDA, so I can't speak about.
Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about we were talking about earlier GDPR.
Yes.
Which I really know very little about, and and you being in Europe are hearing more about it than I am.
Yeah, absolutely. Because
What is it?
It's a general data protection regulation. It's a new regulation from the European Commission that said that data from the citizens, from the EU citizens, must be protected when they are treated from not only for the softwares but also for any kind of way that the companies deal with the privacy. And so basically when you have a software system, you have to protect the data since the very beginning. So when you ask the name, the email, and other data regarding the people,
the personally
the personally
identifiable data.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The way they transition in a channel like HTTP, and there should be HTTPS, for example.
Okay.
And the way you store them, and the way they are available for their consumption.
Okay.
So it's very important because we assisted over the years in many hacks that compromised the data for private people, and so this is something that should not happen anymore. Of course, the problem is what's the difference with the current regulations? Basically, many companies are scared because the fines are very high. So the fines can arrive to 10 million euros or 20 million euros, and they are super high.
So for the cost of not doing this suddenly went way, way up.
Exactly. And the most important thing to understand is this is not only for European companies, because it's something that applies to any company in the world that is treating data regarding EU citizens.
Oh, really? So even if I have a company and I'm storing all my data in the United States,
exactly,
and my company is in the United States, but some of my customers are in Europe, or some of my information I'm storing is about Europeans, I'm still bound by these regulations.
Yes.
Wow.
In fact, Microsoft, for example, is treating this problem very seriously.
Yeah.
They are, of course, they are caring about their own services.
Well, of course, Microsoft
and
has
so
a
on.
strong presence in Europe. I mean, they're
certainly, yes.
But even if they didn't, even if it's David's IT company.
So my point is that since the very beginning I was an MVP for developer security, and I found that this regulation treats the way they suggest to treat the data is very similar to what are the best practices around the world in the security area. For example, Microsoft has this thing called the Security Development Lifecycle. That is a way, for a guide, let's say, for developers how to treat the data in a secure way.
Yes.
Okay, and how to organize the architecture of a system, a software system, so that it's secure.
Oh yeah, I actually did a show on this about 3 years ago with Wolfgang Gerlach.
I want to explain in simple words.
Yes, please.
But one of the main thing of this SDL is the threat model, and the threat model is extremely important because you can analyze the architecture of your system and understand if there is something that can give you a risk that is too high and should be protected. In reality, you should begin the threat model at the very beginning of your architecture, not after you finish writing. But we know that there are many software systems out there, and so you should really care that before May you should understand better your system to see if there is some threat that you have to deal with and to protect, to avoid major problems.
Right. Yeah, so these are things that we should have been doing all along, even without the regulations.
Absolutely, yes.
Has anything changed because of the regulation, other than the fact that now there's some financial incentives that didn't exist before?
It's in Germany. It's probably the European country where they deal with the problem in a most serious way. And other countries have stricter regulations too. Oh. But this is a regulation that is going to give a uniformity all across Europe, and probably also give some guidelines to other countries. So it's an important point in establishing the minimum security requirement for a software system from here on. Let's be frankly speaking. I want to say the OWASP and best practices and so on are absolutely valid, and the people from the EU are probably, in my opinion, inspired from the STL and the OWASP best practices. So there is nothing really new from an expert security perspective. Right. But it's something that we now cannot procrastinate anymore.
Sure. Now, I'm guessing, I haven't seen the regulation, but I'm guessing they're not dictating technologies. Like they're dictating it in terms of what the goals are, correct? They don't say you must encrypt it this way, or you must use SSL, or rather than prescribing specific technologies, there's prescribing goals. You must
of course. There are suggestions. Let's say that say you should probably evaluate if, in your case, it's better to adopt pseudonymization or encryption, and you should always protect your channel. They are not suggesting technologies, as you said, because it doesn't make sense. Because
and technology can change 2-3 years from now.
Of course.
So how do I know if I'm compliant?
Sorry?
How do I know if I'm compliant?
There is no tool now, no magic tool that can tell you if you are compliant. But in the threat model area, there are many threat modeling tools that are available, and there is one free of charge from Microsoft, the threat modeling tool, in where you can model your software system. You can draw your system and apply automatically the threats, so that you can evaluate if your boundaries can allow an hacker to enter your system, evaluate the use cases, and so on. So this is what I believe it's the closer way to understand your system. But frankly speaking, this is not a tool for the GDPR. There is no tool specific for the GDPR. This is just the way the Microsoft SDL worked for years.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the key. These are things that we ought to have been doing all along.
Of course.
And now they're being regulated.
Absolutely, yeah. It's something that many developers, unfortunately, did not apply for years, and now it's time to wake up.
I would agree. This is a wake-up call that we need.
Absolutely.
Are you changing? This rule is going to affect later this year, correct?
Yes, on May.
In May. So, are you changing the way that you do things because of these rules, or are you continuing just to?
Well, if you never did something like protecting channels and so on, yes. One of the suggestions I gave is that you, even if the data you take from people is nothing special, let's say, just the name or the email or something like that, and also no data like an hospital or healthy something like that. One of the most important is to never store the password in clear, because the user could potentially use the same password for his health system.
Sure.
And this can open a kind of cross vulnerability, let's say. And
I think that's more common than not, as people use the same password everywhere.
It's unclear how the European community will treat this specific case, but the suggestion also from a friend that is legal told me, yes, this is something to absolutely avoid. So this is the suggestion I give to all the people when I speak with.
All right. So people out there, I think we've scared them, right? Security talks always scare
Absolutely.
people. They should be a little
As
bit
always.
scared. Where should they go? I think there's the two same goals: to increase their security and to educate themselves about the regulations.
Absolutely, yes. You know the regulation. It's not it's not a piece of paper for legal only. It's also for legal people, but there are technical prescription too. So you should carefully look at every point and accept suggestions from people that is a security specialist, so that you can better understand what is going on inside your architecture and do it accordingly.
Excellent. You have an online presence, do you not?
Yeah, I have an online presence. You can find me on Twitter. It's so easy. And then work on my presentations. I travel around the world. I will be very soon in Romania again, in Iași, and then I will go in Siberia.
Siberia?
Yes.
How exciting.
Yeah. And then in St. Petersburg later on. And again in Romania and Italy, of course. And that's it. I mean,
Raffaele, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, David. I am Raf. I love technology. I am here at the MVP Summit, and I found a lot of friends inside the Visual C++ team and the .NET team. Bye-bye.